Okay, so a video on the New World preview, I've scrapped about 3 different videos in about 24 hours because I don't know how to talk about it without seeming like I hate it. And I don't hate it, it's just the preview seems to make playing it both a chore and concerning in terms of gameplay. The reason this game frustrates me is because I actually want it to do well as an MMORPG. I've been looking forward to it since the announcement 4 years ago, but so far the preview has just made me doubt if I'd actually pay for it based on the quality of the preview itself. The questing system has the personality and creativity of a propped up corpse. The crafting system seems to be both realistic and nonsensical as your guy struggles together but can pull a sword out of thin air within a second, and while the combat does look quite impressive, the reality is that you just feel a bit like the guy out of the Make Love Not Warcraft episode spamming the same buttons over and over again. But let's get into what actually made me think that way. Starting right at the beginning, the first part of the game I was actually impressed. The intro, which is this that I'm showing you now, the character creation seamlessly blend together, and while there's not much lore to it, it does explain how you actually end up in the New World. And the little tutorial was cool with the little slow-mo section, so you can actually learn what it was actually teaching you rather than it just throwing information at you and then disappearing in a text box. Once you actually left the tutorial area though, that's where some rather large cracks started to show to me. And the first crack that showed to me was the questing system, which in this game seems to be go to X location, kill X mob, and then loot some boxes, and then you run all the way back, or you can use an inn to fast travel, but that's once every 60 minutes. And once you hand that quest in, you get another one that says go to X location, kill X mob, and loot some boxes, and that is genuinely about 99% of the quests that I did, and I've not heard of anybody else getting really anything different. Now, as someone who usually hates the questing in any MMO, but I do it to get to the good stuff, such as PvP and crafting, etc., this is an absolute nightmare. Even if I did enjoy questing, this type of quest surely cannot be fun for anybody trying to reach max level. I've asked around on the subreddit, Twitter, Steam forums, and everybody seems to say that this is the questing apart from a couple of crafting side quests that are at the start. And the reason why this seems terrible to me is the entire point of a questing system in any game, in my opinion, and from what I've experienced in previous MMORPGs, is to introduce the player to the world, the combat, the mechanics such as crafting, war, guilds, etc, and that way you introduce the player to the game slowly and in a way that gives them lore, information, and makes them think, damn, this is a good game, I want to keep going even more. Whereas New World at the minute feels a little bit more like a battle arena that's had some quests bolted on just to fit it into the MMORPG category. It's made me within my time of playing just want to go play something else because early on it does introduce you to some of the systems and show you a little bit of how it works, but it's all very basic and it's quite early on, so it doesn't even really make sense to you because you've not even got used to the game. It doesn't really give you any lore and feels very rushed, and it feels like it's there because it has to be, not because it was designed to be. The combat is something that also concerns me, as even if they add in other weapons than the small selection we have now, we can only ever have 4 abilities at one time, or 8 if you count the weapon swap, but that carries its own risks and rewards, and I imagine most people won't swap mid-engagement unless it's a very specific kind of build. But anyway, the combat itself with those 4 or 8 abilities doesn't actually feel that engaging. It's either melee, left click spam, and abilities and a dodge when required, or ranged left click spam with abilities to boost damage and heal others if you're a healer. In my opinion, it needs some kind of way to combo abilities to make it feel more engaging, or just something to make it more engaging, because 4 abilities at the moment, which are all broken by a pause between animations, is especially noticeable, especially on the ranged and the staff weapons. Just off the top of my head, I would say there needs to be more abilities per weapon so you can actually have a more diverse build and feel unique within your guild and or faction. And maybe even something like after level 30, every 10 levels you actually get an extra ability slot so you can be more diverse with your combos. Moving on to gathering and crafting, it's kind of a weird one because gathering takes quite a while depending on the node size and the resource that you're trying to get, but you can make like 10 swords with one click in about a second. And I don't really get how it takes your guy 15 to 20 seconds to gather an iron node, but he can smelt it down in a second and make it into swords in another couple of seconds. To be honest, it's not a big issue, it's just kind of a bugbear. I would prefer them to just half the time of gathering and put it onto the crafting so that it feels kind of balanced. It just kind of confuses me because they've made the most boring part the longest part of it. You just sat there looking at a wheel go around while your guy gathers for about 30 seconds, but meanwhile the guy takes 2 seconds to make 10 swords. I don't get it. But to be honest, the crafting and gathering is more of a small issue. I realise that it might sound like I'm being overly harsh, and maybe in some parts I am, but for 4 years, and probably more, let's face it, you don't announce a game and then start working on it. And then all the time that's gone into developing it, and it's probably going to sound harsh the way I'm going to say this, but it genuinely feels like we're in an early alpha. Like, don't get me wrong, the graphics look really good, but that's not enough to hold a game up on its own. The performance is kinda sketchy in towns as well, it drops frames to like 30. And let's not forget, this game was meant to be out 5 days ago. The only counter I seem to be getting from people when I bring up feedback and criticism of the game is that it's a preview, and to me, the only way I've been able to respond to that is it's like someone showing you a trailer of a movie, saying here's the preview of the film, hope you enjoy it, and showing you the worst parts of the film. And then going, so are you gonna come see it? Why would I? You just show me the worst bits. I really wish that it has called it an alpha or a beta, because your expectations then are much lower and you go in with the mindset of, right, I'm going to test some stuff and I'm going to give feedback, I'm not really expecting a lot. And with the coverage from large streamers where they're all like, woo, look at this is awesome, and I was like, oh sick, I've got a key, let's go try it out. And I just ended up being completely underwhelmed because the introduction to the game, it just kind of killed all the hype for me, and I'm really hoping they go back to the drawing board after this preview and go, okay, we have a lot of work to do. Because at the moment it just feels like the normal PvP game that's had a level system introduced to it and a really bad questing system bolted on. Sadly, there's not a lot more I can actually say on New World at the minute. I really hope Amazon Games get it right, but for now I'm going to wait for the beta and give it another go, and hopefully they polish it off and make it one of the best MMOs of the last few decades. It can get there, but it needs some massive changes to make it inviting in my opinion for new players. Other than that, it pretty much wraps up this video, and I will see you for the next one.